This is One on One with Michelle Buchanan, and I'm here with artist Daena Title.
Raised on Long Island, Daena Title credits her father, who forfeited his dream of being a painter to support his family, for introducing her in her formative years to the art marvels of New York City. It was from him that Title inherited her passion for art. Though her early years were spent painting and drawing, Title moved away from studio art at the more academically minded Wellesley College, from which she received a Bachelor of Arts degree in both art history and theater studies. Moving to New York City, Title then pursued acting and writing. But the birth of her first son reignited a deep-rooted desire to make things, and Title enthusiastically returned to painting. The drama and storytelling of her early years in New York are evident in her current expressionist colorist work as a figurative artist. Title now finds painting to be the best and most satisfying avenue with which to mine her ongoing fascination and obsession with the relationship between women, beauty, identity, and society. Of the many prominent collections in which Title's work is a part, she is most proud of its inclusion in the Brooklyn Museum of Art's Elizabeth A. Sackler Online Feminist Art Base and the Howard Tolman Collection. Title currently resides in Los Angeles, California, where she is represented by the Copland Del Rio Gallery.
Hey Daena, recently a well-known artist stated in an interview that women can't paint well. I'm not going to ask you to respond to that directly, but has there been an instance or an event in your career as an artist where you had to deal with similar attitudes?
Yeah, I heard that quote. And what I want to ask is, really, does he paint with his dick? Look, what's great is that you're asking the question and that it's not being accepted as just fact. When I got my degree in art history in 1979, all I learned about were white European men. Because whoever has the money and the power gets to say what art is and what it's worth, and they're the ones who write history. Now, I personally have not, as far as I know, had any issues with sexism in my dealing with the art market. But that being said, you have women, great women artists, who do not command the same prices as men. And that's because men control the market. Men dominate collecting and art criticism. They control the museums and the auction houses. And while they dominate these areas, their preferences and their tastes and their fears are going to prevail and dominate. But that doesn't mean that it's better art, any more than if you look at 19th century neoclassicism, it's better art than mid-20th century abstract expressionism. It is simply a function of who had the power at the time and what they defined art to be. And today, art is defined globally. It's a global market. So you're not just worrying anymore about how women are doing in America and what the stats are here. You have men buying American art who are coming from countries where women can't even drive. So how are they going to respect American women artists? And that, I think, is answered by capitalism. So we, as women artists in America, are in a better position and better represented than we have ever been in the past, because we are standing on the shoulders of the women who came before us, like the Guerrilla Girls or Alice Neal. And as that women's market continues and strengthens in America, then that will translate into a viable global investment. So, as women, more women continue to infiltrate and gain these positions of power and control the purse strings, then these kinds of idiotic, self-centered, privileged, myopic statements made by men who were born on a cultural third base and think they hit a creative triple will be a thing of the past. Next question.
Wow, what a great response, Daena. And you're absolutely right. Until we start actually painting with our reproductive organs, there shouldn't be such vast differentials between gender in the art world. Now I'd like to talk about your Drown the Doll series. I appreciate this series on so many different levels. Let's take a look at a few pieces. What strikes me about the Drown the Doll paintings is that when you first look at them, you really aren't sure what you're looking at, and then it hits you. And then it hits you again on a completely different plane. These conceptual pieces are striking both physically and on an emotional level. Can you talk about your inspiration for this series?
I'm trying to find this balance between representation and abstraction. And every series I've worked on has been trying to find a way to balance these two things, to destroy the image and at the same time leave an opening for the viewer to enter into the painting and recreate the act of seeing. So in the Drown the Doll series, the water reflections allowed an abstraction in this kaleidoscopic, fragmented way that allowed me to put representation and abstraction in the same canvas. And they were visually complex. And so swinging the pendulum on that, my next series of the Beauty Queens was very graspable and very immediate, high emotion. And I'm finding now I'm swinging back again, and those same Beauty Queens are starting to become more fragmented and more fantastical, because somewhere between these things is this answer that I haven't found yet.
Well, you've definitely succeeded at finding that balance. You clearly say something with your art, and your messages are strong. I admire that. Can you talk about what growing up feminist looked like and how it shaped you as an artist?
Well, thanks. You know, when I start out on a series, I don't start out trying to say something feminist. I get obsessed about something, and then when I turn around and look at what I'm doing, it just turns out to be feminist because it's who I am. So when I was growing up, it was a fascinating time because I was straddling two worlds. My childhood was dominated by this dream of the American housewife of the 50s. And then my teen years was when feminism hit and Now was created and the whole women's movement began. So my teen years, everything changed. Nobody knew who they were anymore, and roles were just up for grabs. It was quite the time. People were arguing about who should hold a door open, and women were taking responsibility for their own orgasms, and at the same time there were basic rights like equal pay for equal work, and Title IX, which brought women's sports into the schools. It was a hotbed. They created a whole vocabulary from sexist pig to feminist that did not exist before. And it was a very strange time to create one's emerging identity. Lots of influences.
You're welcome, Daena. What a fascinating time that must have been to grow up. For me, it was the 80s and Madonna. And sadly, I think a lot of women during my teen years felt that the fight for equal rights had been won. So things lay dormant for quite a few years. And that's why I really admire women like yourself who are willing to put it right out in the forefront. So speaking of influences, if you had to name one person or event in your life that you feel influenced your art the most, who or what would that be?
Matisse. Matisse is the gateway drug, definitely. I remember as a teenager standing in front of a painting in the Museum of Modern Art, this Matisse. It was a head and shoulders portrait, and one side is hot pink, and the other side is yellow, and down the center is this green stripe. And there was this shock of recognition as I looked at this painting, because that's how I saw. And it wasn't until my 40s when I was being taught by Rosinez Maunosans, and she explained to me that it's because Matisse is one of the first artists who saw in terms of color and not just in terms of value, and that's how I saw.
What an amazing story. And you're definitely a true colorist, so I can see that connection. So Daena, here's my last question. What advice would you give to a young artist?
I would say that you are your own best friend and your own worst enemy. And the sooner that you can figure out which voice is which, the better. And I used to think that I worked alone in the studio, but it's not true, because I'm in the studio, so I have to deal with me and all my mishigas and collaborate with myself. So when you can recognize your fears and your emotional reactions to the process, the sooner you can get out of your way, and the path will be easier, because it's like wherever you go, you take you with you. And I would say wear protective gear. Life is long and the studio is full of toxins, so take care of yourself.
Oh, those dreaded insecurities. I think they follow us around our entire lives. Great advice. Daena, thank you so much for joining me tonight. It was great getting a peek into your world and a look at your work up close and personal. You've been watching One on One with Michelle Buchanan. Thanks for joining me, and see you next time.